Hello everybody! So today we thought for my first video that he is going to help make, we are going to have a go at making Lincolnshire sausages. I thought let's throw ourselves in at the deep end for our first video and do something we've never done before, that we haven't got a clue what we're doing, with equipment we've never used before as well. So here we have a 1.65 kilo joint of pork shoulder. We couldn't get pork belly, and it does advise mixing both pork belly and pork shoulder on the recipe. I'm going to attempt to try and get the rind off this pork joint, which I've never done before. So here we go.
Nearly there, dun, dun, dun. Ta-da!
So Rich has managed to successfully get the rind off because I was struggling a little bit with that, and left on quite lots of fat as well. My dog is also sat down at my feet staring at me, looking at this pork rather longingly as well. Getting there. This is quite a chunk of meat. This is going to make, I should imagine, quite a lot of sausage.
It says a wide/chunky setting, so we shall go for coarse.
Do you want to show that right in? Yeah, brilliant.
As opposed to the finer holes.
So that's what we're going to go for, guys. A thicker one. Right, I've now successfully chopped my meat, so I'm going to get my hands washed and get on with preparing all of the other ingredients.
That's not a teaspoon.
I haven't finished yet. It is a teaspoon.
Wow, that's a big teaspoon.
That's why I just said it feels like quite a lot of salt. So I'm quite worried. So I'm going to put slightly less in.
I'm going to put 3 half teaspoons in.
Yeah.
By the looks of things.
That's what's happening there, because 3 teaspoons looks like a lot. I might regret that decision. So we've just finished preparing all of the dry ingredients. So Rich has very kindly grated some fresh nutmeg. So in this little ramekin here, I have got half a teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, 3 teaspoons, which seemed like quite a lot, so we sort of did a little bit less, of fine salt. We've got 2 teaspoons of freshly grated nutmeg, courtesy of Rich, as I said, and 1 teaspoon of ground coriander. I've also got some fresh sage leaves. I'm going to pop the sage leaves in with the meat. And I'm going to put the dry ingredients in as well. This is probably not a big enough bowl, so I'm just going to stop the camera or get my glorious assistant to, I'm going to just transfer all of that to a slightly bigger bowl so I can sort of mix it all together, get my hands stuck in, get all the meat sort of marinated with the dry ingredients, and then we're going to get that put through the food processor. It is also worth noting at this stage as well that for the sausages we are using natural hog casings, which I ordered online. Again, I can put the website in the comments section that we ordered them from. I did actually order them from Amazon, so I'll just have to look and remind myself who the supplier was for that. They are fresh hog skins that were salted, so we were soaking them in cold water overnight in the refrigerator, and as per the recommendation on the packet, they've been sitting in warm water for the last half an hour, so hopefully that should make the whole process a bit easier. This is the meat going into the slightly bigger mixing bowl, and all those dry ingredients that we were talking about earlier, so I'm just going to sprinkle that over the meat. That's all the dry ingredients bar the cornflour. As you see, if you do follow the recipe on gloriouslygoodfood.com, you'll see that the cornflour doesn't get added at this stage. So I'm just going to get my hands well in there and get all those dry ingredients well and truly over the pork meat. So yeah, basically what we're going to do now is, now that the meat's well and truly coated with this, is we're going to get the KitchenAid set up with the meat grinder tool on it, and we're going to get all this meat put through the meat grinder. So we've just had to change the camera angle slightly, and I'm going to get Rich to show you how the meat grinder attachment actually does attach to the KitchenAid.
Right, okay, so this is the Kenwood...
It's not a Kenwood! It's a kitchen.
Right, this is the KitchenAid food grinder. We're just going to use it for grinding our pork to make sausages. It attaches to the auxiliary attachment thing on the KitchenAid. Just so you know how it goes together, it consists of plastic tube, that's where your meat goes in. That's your worm gear. So all that does is squidge it through. You've then got a cutting blade that goes on and chops all the meat up, and that's your plate that turns it into a nice thick paste. Now, if I can just squidge it in. That's it all assembled. Just remove the relevant bit. Get it keyed in. Tighten it up and we should be good to go.
So we're going to put it on the slowest setting, the KitchenAid, and then feed the meat through the hole in the top. And hopefully what will come out is sausage meat. But I think it's just like a constant manual feed of getting the meat into the into the tube / hole. And that's how that's going to play. So I'm just now going to feed the meat into the tube to make sausages. Brilliant. Okay, so go. It does come with a handle to plunge the meat into the hole. As you can see, it is starting to slowly come out. Oh, it's going quite quickly now, so here we now have a bowl of minced meat and fat. So I'm going to put the pork to one side. I'm probably going to refrigerate it for a bit now whilst we make the breadcrumbs. I'm just going to start by breaking up some of the bread and just popping that in the food processor. This will have to be a bit of a stage process because there's 360 grams of bread here, which is quite a lot. Just pop that on, and I probably just use the pulse function for this. So here we go. So actually, in hindsight, start it off with the pulse and then probably just put it on 1 for a couple of seconds because it breaks the breadcrumbs up much more quickly and more effectively. This little device here, it's actually really good for cleaning work surfaces. It's a work surface scraper. It sounds like a really obvious, I don't even really know why I'm showing you this, I just really like this tool. I just think this tool is really cool because you don't have to use a damp cloth and get the damp cloth full of manky crumbs. I just think this is a really funky little device and I use it a lot, and that is why I wanted to show you this. Having a anyway, that's not what this video is about, so bear with me a second. So I've now got a much bigger mixing bowl, which I can show you here. It's nearly the size of bigger than the size of my head. Why am I doing that? I don't know. Like, stop it.
Recompose.
So I've got all the sausage meat prepared here, which I've just taken out of the fridge, and the breadcrumbs here, which I've just made in the food processor. So what I'm actually going to do for ease is I'm going to add the cornflour to the breadcrumbs, and then it'll all just sort of mix in a bit easier. So, like so. I've also got 400 millilitres of cold water here as well. So I'm just going to start by, I'm just going to sort of mix that cornflour in with the breadcrumbs a little bit there. So I'm going to do this with hands because we want to get a better sort of, just sort of bring it all together. So I'm just going to pop the delightful sausage meat in there, and I'm going to just mix the breadcrumbs in. What I'll do is I'll actually start adding that, sort of combining that bit together first before I then get the water mixed in as well. Okay, so at this stage I'm now just going to sort of slowly start adding this water in because I don't want it all to be too sloppy too quickly. It's really sloppy at this stage, which I'm sure is normal because it is supposed to be a paste. As you can hear it, very slushy and sloppy. That's a really gross noise. So we've got ready the the sausage attachment for the KitchenAid, and it simply just goes on the front of the KitchenAid, and then there's a screw, so it's just a case of sort of tightening that screw, making sure it's nice and tight. So I've done a bit of reading, and we are supposed to be greasing this, and it ideally says with some shortening, which I don't have, so I'm just going to use a little bit of butter and hope for the best on that. So I'm just going to grease the tip. The best thing to do is to feed the hog skins onto what's actually called the horn. I don't know if that's an American thing. So we're going to just feed all of the casings on. We did also just make sure that they were all unknotted before we did that, because oh my god, this is so knotty. Because obviously we don't want there to be a big knot. I think it just needs to get pushed right to the back. Oh, it's sort of ripped there. So I think that might be a sign to stop. So I'm just going to leave this really gross bit dangling off here. And from the little bit of research that I've done, I understand that you sort of put your thumb at the end, start feeding the meat into the hopper at the top, and as soon as you feel the meat sort of touch the end, you stop it, pop a knot in, and then start feeding it through and making sure that everything stays as tight and compacted as possible with minimal air bubbles. So I'm just going to give that a go now. So I'm just going to start by popping a little bit of the meat down into the hopper. So this has actually been refrigerated whilst we were preparing everything else, because everything I've read does say to keep things as sort of cool as possible. So I think everything's on and good to go. Just start it off a bit slowly. It helps if we turn it on at the mains. It might help if I turn it the right way. So obviously you can see the meat's come to the end there, so I'm just going to tie that off as a knot at the end. The sausage meat has started to come through. I'm going to try and keep that quite tight. I'm just going to move that bowl of water. And I think just let the sausages sort of come down onto the work surface, which is nice and clean. And then it'll hopefully just be one big load of sausages, and then we'll twist them as they come off. So I'm going to get my glamorous assistant to just press the go, and I'm going to try really hard for this to not look like a Generation Game fail.
What speed would you like me to put it on?
Let's start. So, I don't know. Go with 4, because that's what it said. No idea how to finish that off other than
Snip it.
so I'm just gonna, I guess, I have no idea, pull this off, give it a snip with enough length to then just tie that last bit into a knot at the end. And we're going to try and figure out now how we tie them. So yeah. So I have cheated a bit and just done one off screen. I think, you know, we've learned quite a lot. There's a few air bubbles in these, so we probably would need pricking before cooking. And perhaps I made them a little bit too chunky, so next time we'll probably feed less in. So I'm using about a hand's width to sort of judge the length of the sausage, and then just twisting it 3 times. That one has definitely gone slightly bigger than the previous. But there we go, and that is sausages.